Did we lose sound? Can everyone hear? Can everyone hear? Okay. Pastor Lu, can you check Pastor's sound? Okay, thank you. Give us a second. It seems like we had an issue with sound on the back end. We're getting that resolved. Thank you.
Warm greetings and God bless everyone. We thank God for making today possible. I want to welcome you all to today's edition of the African Leadership Group, the Nigerian Leadership Series. And today promises to be very, very exciting as we have on the call two very distinguished gentlemen who have taken the time and trouble to join us from out of state in Nigeria to speak on the global implications of Nigeria's elections. Both of them very, very qualified, very amiable. I have met them personally, and we have had some kind of repertoire together. First of all is Mr. Robert A., professor of law at the Catholic University of America's Columbus School of Law in Washington, D.C. Professor Destro, you are very, very welcome indeed. He has been a member of the CUA Law Faculty since 1982, served as interim dean from 1999 to 2001, and as a director of the University's Institute for Policy Research and Catholic Studies from 2017 to 2019. His government service includes the United States Commission on Civil Rights, Commissioner 1983 to 89, Assistant Secretary of State for Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, September 2019 to January 2021, and a special representative for Tibetan issues 2020 to 2021. He was born and raised in Ohio, did his Bachelor of Arts from the Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, his law degree in 1975 from the University of California, Berkeley, and is an active member of the Ohio Bar. Professor Destro, you are most welcome, and thank you for joining us this, well, it's evening in Nigeria now. I reckon it must be morning in the US, about 11 a.m. Thank you so much for being here. The other speaker tonight is Mr. Kyle Abts. Kyle Abts I can say Kyle is a friend of mine. We've been here and there together in the US and in Nigeria with his lovely wife. And is the founding member and director of the International Committee on Nigeria, ICON. He has worked for nearly 25 years in relief and community development with various agencies, Food for the Hungry, World Renew Sports Friends, and SIM. Serving in Nigeria, he has led various projects that included widows and orphans care, literacy and health projects, and he has also coordinated projects for IDPs. For those of you who do not know, an IDP is an internally displaced people in various locations in Nigeria. Kyle is very, very conversant with Nigeria. He has done many things using sports to develop communities in Nigeria, Niger, Ghana, Senegal, Burkina Faso, and so on and so forth. He also served as consular warden for the US Embassy in Nigeria, as well as various committees on Nigeria. He's married to Anne-Marie, and they have two lovely adult children. Gentlemen, you are very, very welcome. Kyle, from what part of the world are you speaking today?
My foot is in Chicago, but it's soon to be leaving, so I'm headed to West Africa.
Okay, excellent. Your implications of elections. Professor, I'm going to go with you first, and I'm going to be asking you from where you stand and from where we are looking at things in Washington, D.C., what's the feeling, what's the sense? Is there any buzz about the elections coming up in Nigeria, in the capital, and what are people thinking, or are they just not on top of what is going on in Nigeria at this point in time?
Are you asking me?
Professor Destro, did you hear me?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Well, I think it's important for everybody to understand that I don't think that Africa is the highest on the priority list of the current administration. I think that there's a lot of reasons for that, but this is not the time or the place to get into it. The big news here in Washington tends to always be about, in the last few weeks, certainly is about Ukraine, is about the domestic economy. So in one respect, I think that's almost better. Sometimes you don't want the attention of everybody, so you can have a useful conversation about what do we do, no matter how the elections come out, what do we do about them? But I do think, as a matter of, in speaking with some of my former State Department colleagues who actually spent a lot of time now, even now, in Africa, the administration's attention is not on Africa.
Okay, so, but people, do they have their sights? They don't have their sights on Nigeria at all at this point in time. And what are your own thoughts as to what is going on in Nigeria? Are you very conversant with the struggle for leadership in Nigeria? 3 main parties now, maybe a 4th. And what do you think Nigerians should be looking forward to or should be doing at this point in time?
Well, I mean, I think the question of do you have the administration's attention is one set of questions. Do you have the Congress's attention? Well, yes, you do. I mean, that here in the United States, just as in Nigeria, we have a federal system and we have divided authority. And so there's a lot of activity now in Congress trying to bring attention to the situation in Nigeria. And the question is then, how did from my perspective as an American, I'm not really qualified to talk about what you Nigerians actually should be expecting. I'm more interested in hearing what you have to say about that topic, but from the perspective of the American government, I don't think the policy has changed much, that we see Nigeria as being one of the, if not the most important country in Africa, it's certainly one of the most important countries in Africa. And officially, we're not really supposed to be involved in the election. I mean, that's for Nigerians to decide. But if you look at the question, what do Americans in general think about Nigeria? I think, unfortunately, they don't think much about it at all. Like most other countries, it's really going to be Americans of Nigerian descent, who are going to be the most interested. I mean, my wife's family is from Ireland, and so she's always very interested in what's happening in Ireland. So I think that what you're going to have is different levels of interest in what's going on right now. But all of us, together have a very big interest in seeing to it that whatever happens in the election, we're all working together to help Nigeria. I mean, in the end, that's really what we're all about. And my particular expertise is helping other people understand what is it that we could be doing on this side of the ocean, to help out in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Prof. Let me turn it to you, Kyle. You've done a lot of work in Nigeria, and you probably have a bit of understanding of the situation and atmosphere in Nigeria. And you've probably gone through one or two election cycles in the past. Relatively and comparatively, is there any difference in this election cycle from the previous election cycle that you may have witnessed in Nigeria, or what are your thoughts as to what this present election cycle portends for Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you, Pastor. Good to see you again. I think living in Nigeria for almost 16 years and then coming back and forth the last 5-6 years, I've sat through many Saturdays, locked on my compound, not able to go out, and watching the commotion going on outside. And often, whether I was living in McCurdy or in Jos, seeing smoke rise, loud voices being heard because something happened, something wasn't right, something was taken away from them, their ability to cast their democratic vote. So this year is going to be interesting. As you said in the beginning, the two main candidates, APC and PDP, are being contended by the third party, Labour, Peter Obi. And having been there in September, taking usually 4 hours from Jos to Abuja, it took us 8 hours because we had to contend with the Obedients who were marching. They're doing a walk, an exercise, and decided to turn it into a rally to get people out. And that was just one location of many. So I think Obi has generated a lot of interest, stemming on the heels of the End SARS protest in Lagos and different things. That just, it started in Lagos, but it emanated around Nigeria. But seeing Obi's followers, and I don't know if it's Obi himself. I don't think people are voting for Obi. They're just voting for a difference, a change. It just happens to be Peter Obi, it just happens to be the Labour Party. But the youth, whether you're Muslim or Christian, are out in numbers. If their vote is cast and it's counted, I think there could be a change. But again, the thoughts on the ground are it's going to be the same old, same old. Someone's going to buy something off, or ballots will be lost or changed or diverted or whatever. So I don't know. I don't see this election being any different than past elections. The main content, the one you think is going to win because of the deep pockets or whatever, is probably going to win, unfortunately.
I didn't get that. You were breaking.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying
about deep pockets.
Yeah, I say so. I think APC, PDP will buy each other off, and somehow APC will emerge the winner because they've were able to change and taint the ballots and whatnot. Hopefully, in my heart of hearts, I wish that wasn't true, and I'm praying for that not to be true. But that's something that could happen.
Okay, so what do you think Nigeria will be like if APC, for instance, wins these elections? And how do you think the international community, a bit of which you represent, will look at Nigeria? Or do you think if the international community had their own preferences, there would be any of those parties that they would prefer to work with? Did you hear the question, Kyle? You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, I thought it was for Bob. Sorry. So yeah, my thing is, I, as Bob said in the beginning, I don't think this nation, the U.S. side, the U.K. side as well, are not really concerned who wins. They just want to see someone come out, someone being put as a president, and then going back to business. Working on the security situation in West Africa, helping to take the resources and investments. So I'm not sure. I think there are a few people who would like to see Peter Obi, but again, I'm not sure that there's enough of them to want that. As much as we do, as much as most of the civil society organizations are really pushing for that, I'm not sure the government is.
Yeah, and if I can add to that too, Nigeria is also having local state elections. And, from my perspective as an American who's interested in the security situation on the ground, the I'm almost more interested in what happens in the state level than I am in the federal level, because in one respect, it's like here in the United States, security is provided at the local level. So I don't want to have to, if there's a burglary in my neighborhood here in Arlington, Virginia, I don't want to have to call the FBI. I want to call the local police and have them take care of it. And so I think there's a lot of creative things that could be done, with local governments on a kind of a more subnational level, both here in the United States and in Nigeria.
Yeah, but in Nigeria, Prof, the security is a federal responsibility. We have only one police force, and one inspector general of police, and that's the federal agent. He then posts his officers at his own discretion and at his own will to different states. And those ones now have to work with the governor, who is supposed to be the chief security officer of the states, but he has no influence to a large degree as to who the officer that he's working with is. He may be able to recommend or suggest or ask for somebody, but sometimes those postings are done without any recourse to him. How does that portend for you in your own thinking for the effective implementation of security in a state and the local?
So I think that this is one area where there are a lot of people, certainly over here, who we understand the current structure of the Nigerian security forces, but as I'll tell everybody on the call today, that in diplomacy, you have to ask for specific things. You have to have a wish list. You can't wish for peace and justice. That's too general. We need to say is, look, how do we take the resources that the United States is giving to Nigeria and say, look, we want these resources now directed more toward physical security on the ground. We want you to do some reforms of security services. I mean, we know that's a big issue. It unites, certainly here in the United States, it unites Democrats and Republicans. That security issue is a huge issue on this side of the ocean. And I haven't run into anybody, Republican or Democrat, who disagrees on that. So that's something that if we all work together on this side of the ocean, we might be able to affect some change over there, whoever wins.
Okay, Kyle, do you have any thoughts on the security issues in Nigeria? You've lived in Jos, Makurdi, you've worked there. What really is the situation on the ground there? And do you think that a state police situation will make things better?
For sure. I mean, this is always the argument. You have police who are underfunded, underutilized, and really unprepared for a lot of things. They can only do so much. So you have the mobile police, you have the army with the mobile barracks going around, operation this, operation that, and a lot of times in the middle belt, for sure, they're accused of being complicit in it. They show up, either the checkpoint, they leave the checkpoint, allowing Fulani militants to come in, or they're with them, or somehow uniforms are shared, or weapons are shared, or ammunition is shared. So, to have a state police, you develop a kind of sort of accountability. You develop a structure to say, this is our state, this is our region, this is where we're going to protect our people, and hopefully there'll be some pride. I can't see it going another way. With the federal level, it's just so hard to control, to guide, and then the abuse to Reuters came out with the report, the abuse against citizens, forcing abortions, killing children of supposed Boko Haram, ISWAP terrorists. I mean, this is our security forces to serve and protect. I'm not seeing it in Nigeria.
Thank you very, very much. I'll turn it to you, Prof. What do you think Nigeria needs to do to catch the attention of America? What can we do to to catch American interests? And what kind of Nigeria would America like to see and do business with, or see and relate with?
Well, let me start with your last question. I think Nigeria is an incredibly important, it's a beautiful country with lots of smart people who, far be it from us to be sitting over here telling you what you need to do. I mean, you're plenty smart. And as we look at the resources that Nigeria has that can bring to the table, I was chatting a couple of weeks ago with the ambassador of another African country, and I said, "Look, we're looking at a huge food crisis, and Africa is the solution to the problem." And we don't need to tell you that you're the solution. You are the solution. There's lots of smart people, lots of assets, lots of good weather, lots of good soil. So the question is, how can we help you be the solution to the world's problem? I mean, that's from our perspective over here. We can help you learn how to work the levers over here. But the great divide, I think, is often between, all Nigerians don't live in Abuja. They live all over the country. And so, having a sense of where the money is going from the United States over to Nigeria is something you all need to learn, because then you can tell us whether or not we're doing any good or whether or not we're wasting the money. I mean, this needs to be a partnership with us as the junior partners. You need to be the senior partners because you live there.
Thank you. Do you have any thoughts on that, Kyle?
No, I totally agree. I mean, my whole perspective is to come alongside and see where I could help. I hope I don't come across as this is a solution, this is what you need to do. That's never our intent. Our intention is to say, how can we help you be a voice? Especially those in the diaspora living in the US and the UK. Your voice is most powerful because you not only represent Nigerians, your family, your heritage back in Nigeria, but you also represent your constituent, your family here in the US. You pay taxes, you have mortgages, you have jobs. You have a huge role to play because those you elect here are those you need to keep responsible or accountable for what's going on in Nigeria. There's much needed to be done to raise your voice and be a voice. And as Bob said, we can get you in the doors, push some papers around, will definitely help. We're not going to sit here and give you an ABC. We want to be there and say, what do you need and how can we help?
Yeah, one of the really good things
Do you
about
think? Go ahead, sir.
No, one of the really good things about a little forum like this is that we need to be having more of them and smaller, and so that there's what we both need is information. We have a lot of information, you have a lot of information. We're not going to be able to come up with a wish list. I don't have a wish list. It's your wish list. I mean, as a diplomat, I would always go in knowing what the United States wanted in a negotiation, but it was very important to listen to what does the other side want, and that's why I say from the perspective of people living at home in Nigeria, we need to know at a very, very specific level, what specifically can we help you do? Because otherwise it's too general.
Okay, I'm going to be asking Jumoke and Sonny to come up now and see if they have and to contribute to this discourse and bring out one or two things. But before I do that, Kyle, you must know INEC a little bit from your own perspective. Do you think they're prepared, they're equipped, and do you think they're going to run a good and strong electoral process this time around?
That's a loaded question. Every time there's all these pronouncements, they're going to change the way they do voter registration with biometrics, with the face and the fingers, and then the PVCs aren't yet out, or the PV centers are being burned down. So it's I don't know. I can't say 100% that they're ready for this election, but I from what I hear, they're trying. Again, my confidence is not in INEC, so especially since you don't have a digital footprint in the sense of a voter ballot. Those things that just help stem the tide of corruption and malpractice. So.
All right, I'm going to turn the team question over to you, Prof. Destro. What do you then think are the global implications of Nigeria's election? What would be how do you think that would go?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Do you think, first of all, I don't know how much you know about Nigeria. Do you think the outcomes of this election would affect the international community in any way? What would be the implications for the US, for the UK, for outer Africa? Have you had any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, no, I think it will have an impact. And like I say, I'm interested in both the federal election and the local election, because the business really gets done at the local level. The high level policy gets done at the national level, but let's just look at the gifts that God blessed Nigeria with. First and foremost, God bless Nigeria with Nigerians. I mean, you have got an incredibly diverse, smart, educated, energetic force. I mean, and this is why the elections are important. And like Kyle has said, we here in the United States we're not supposed to have opinions on how the election comes out, because, and I quite frankly don't, because I don't have, I just want a government that will work closely for the people. And then at the international level, Nigeria is a major energy producer. The war in Ukraine has messed up the energy markets. So Europe is going to become even more dependent on Nigeria than it has been in the past. The same thing is true with the ability of Nigerians to grow the food that's going to be necessary to stave off global famine, and we know that's coming. So we need to be planning together to avoid disaster. That's why I keep saying Nigeria, Africa, and Nigerians are the solution. There's no problem that we can't solve together, but you guys are the solution.
All right. Are you on top of the kinds of projects that the US has been interested in Nigeria? And what do you think US government or US corporations or US agencies will be interested in doing in Nigeria, in all sort of businesses? Would they be interested in transaction? You've mentioned that food is very, very important. Is there any other thing? Is there any other bilaterals that you should be thinking about?
Well, again, it's being not only a former diplomat, but also being a lawyer, I'd like to see what's going on now. And so this is one of the things where I think we can be useful in helping the folks, the Nigerians here in the United States, to understand what are the relationships now. Because we're not starting from zero. We're starting from, a certain set of relationships that already exist. There are military relationships, there are business relationships, there's agricultural relationships, you name it. And just looking at the amount of money the United States is giving Nigeria every year, it's well over $1 billion. And one of the first questions that people should be asking and answering is, well, what do we get for that?
So what do you get for that? Tell me.
I don't know. That's the big question. As Kyle knows, I've been talking about that for a long time. It's the old adage is follow the money. So we need to find out what you get for that. What I fear is you're not getting nearly as much as you deserve. I mean, and I'm not talking about the amount. I'm talking about, do you actually get, what you're being given? And I think the answer to that question is no.
Okay, Kyle, please tell us about ICON. Okay, you're a founding member and director of ICON. What sort of work has ICON been doing? What's ICON trying to do? How can ICON help Nigeria? How can ICON support Nigeria? And what do you think Nigeria should be doing to attract the interest of the global world?
So ICON is the International Committee on Nigeria. Stephen Anata and myself co-founded it about 5 years ago, but we've known each other since 2000. We've been colleagues and friends. So I think the goal that we've had is to advocate for Nigerians, whether it be the Biafra genocide, whether it be the Middle Belt, the killing of Christian farmers, or the terrorists that continue to kidnap and kill people like Leah Sharibu and others. There's a role to be played here in the U.S. to bring forward issues and ideas to hold Nigeria accountable. As Bob said, follow the money. The U.S. is giving about $1 billion in aid to Nigeria along top of military assistance and whatnot. But the accountability for Nigeria's human rights, religious freedom is vacant. So we need to advocate, and we've been doing that, trying to get Nigeria back on the country of particular concern list. Bob and some others were very instrumental in getting a resolution presented in the Congress, and hopefully that will gather some momentum. So we hope that will bring about a change to then say, look, we can hold Nigeria accountable because of these actions that the U.S. government is taking against Nigeria. So many things we're often in Washington, D.C., talking to congressmen, senators, other groups, trying to get them to speak up on Nigeria's violations, many violations. So we're just trying to be a voice for those who seemingly don't have a voice or feel they're left behind. So.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know if Jumoke is there and she'd like to
Yes.
button at this point in time.
Yeah, good
Jumoke,
evening.
over to you.
Thank you, sir. So good evening, and thank you so much for doing this. I have I want to follow up on your question, on your response, Kyle, and we'll also bring Pastor Eneda on. I know you've worked very hard on having Nigeria back on the list of country of particular concern, and during Bob's administration, Nigeria was on that list. Why is it important for Nigeria to be back on that list of countries of particular interest? Why is that so important to the US and to the rest of the world?
Well, maybe Bob can add more to the nitty-gritty of that, but it's not important to this administration. They delisted it. They took it off. The previous administration where Bob served was very vocal about this, getting it on there, and they spoke above what State Department certain officials or careers were saying, and took a stance and said, no, Nigeria must be on this. We need to hold it accountable. So we feel it needs to be on there to be able to draw attention to those atrocities that are going on, these religious freedom violations, human rights, things like blasphemy laws that continue to be on our books. Why, when there's a constitution of a democratic republic, is there Sharia law in 12 and a third of the country? These kind of things are very important, and that's why the CPC designation is very important.
Well, it's important only from the perspective of making a statement in terms of what does it actually mean. I think I can speak from experience working inside the State Department, And virtually the entire State Department bureaucracy is opposed to having Nigeria be on the list. And there's a lot of good reasons for that, largely because, that'll be the first thing that the government will ask about. Why are we on this list? And of course, if you don't want to talk about the issue of violence and physical security, then it gives them a free pass. But by and large, in the cosmic scheme of things, being on the list or not on the list doesn't solve the problems on the ground. It's just it's a matter of making a statement that we see what's going on and we don't like it.
Okay. So I'll follow up on, we'll probably stay around this question. Now, Nigeria is the most populous Black nation in the world. And the Western world, I would say the Western world talks about how important diversity is. So why isn't the well-being of Nigeria at the forefront of a lot of governments, policymakers? Why isn't it on their table? Because if anything happens to Nigeria, it does have consequences. It has global impact. So, and then the second question, and you can just answer this together. Recently, US enacted visa bans on people that they felt or on bad, and I would just use the word bad actors. Why is that coming now? Why isn't the US also encouraging the Western world, other European countries, to also enact these policies so that there is nowhere to go? There's nowhere for the bad actors to go. So if you can speak a little bit about that visa ban, why now? And why isn't there a call for other countries to join in that visa ban?
Well, I think I can say in terms of, I want to start with your point about Nigeria being the largest Black country. I think that's really important. But you are the ones who need to talk about it. I mean, when I was speaking about speaking with one of the other ambassadors from Africa, we got to talking about how the environmental, the ESGs, the environmental sustainable goals, she said, well, look, this is the new colonialism. I said, well, yeah, it is, but I can't say that. You have to say it. Unless the African ambassadors get together and start talking, as if, look, we have a lot to offer here, and we need you to get out of our way. Because in the end, it's I sat in a meeting with several ambassadors. We had dinner when I was in Abuja in 2020, and they were all waiting for the United States to do something, and my reaction is, well, why are you waiting? I mean, you've got the UK, you got Germany, you got Netherlands, you got, the whole European Union, but it's all the same. I mean, so if you talk to people in the State Department, you talk to people in Brussels, the message is largely the same. They don't really care about Africa. I mean, I think that's, that is the part that's really frustrating. And the only reason they're going to care is if you demand that they care. You got to get their attention. And I'm not sure how you do that. What we don't want is to get their attention because something blows up. I mean, that's usually what happens. But what we want is some positive attention, not negative attention.
Thank you. Kyle, did you have something to add to that?
I mean, Bob, it's the same thing. I mean, Nigeria is in the driver's seat of its own destiny. I mean, it's blessed with people, resources. It's seen as the world is seeing it as its key democratic nation in a very tumultuous region. The insecurity and stalled human development of West Africa with the coups and the Russians coming into Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, other places like Niger, failed coup attempts, Guinea-Bissau, Chad's military rule. So Nigeria should be a beacon of democracy, but what will they do with that destiny? That's not up for me or Bob or the US government to decide. but we can be a voice, we can be a partner with it, or at least a voice to those who want to see that change and are being trampled down.
Thank you. One more question. So I know there's a lot of intelligence report, and the US uses the intelligence report to help other countries. In what way has the US used the intelligence report to help Nigeria with insecurity?
Well, that's a little bit of a hard question to answer because I didn't work on what we call the political military side of the question, but if you're looking at security issues, almost invariably people are talking about international security, like ECOWAS, and the physical security in the Gulf of Guinea, the military kinds of issues. And occasionally when you get a kidnapping, you'll get, the hostage people get involved. That's when people hear security, that's what they mean. They don't mean calling Abuja because there was a bunch of bandits coming in on motorcycles killing people. That message has got to be conveyed politically here in the United States so that when we start thinking security, that's what we think about.
Thank you. Kyle, did you have something to add to that?
No, I mean, I think Bob's right. You hear of these things on the US side, and it's mostly regional. It's not necessarily, they try to give comment to what's going on inside Nigeria, but Nigeria's going to explain it away or give excuses or whatnot. So they try not to influence or say anything. And it's more to keeping the stability of West Africa, that part of the hemisphere. So. Okay.
Thank you. I have another question, but I'll bring Pastor Eneda up. He's had his hand up for a while. Pastor Eneda, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
All right. Thank you, everyone here. Thank you, Bob and Kyle. Now, I would like to bring attention of Bob to the U.S. interest. Having operated with you and others within Washington, D.C. policy space, I've come to understand many things. Yes, U.S. is a big player. U.S. has disrupted a lot of countries also in the past from their history, but that is not where I'm going. This is my concern. U.S. has interest in Nigeria. It has interest in Africa or anywhere. So the only problem is that the interest of U.S. in Nigeria is not what will profit or benefit our people. For example, during the era of Boko Haram, that we were working hard for Boko Haram to be designated as a terrorist group, U.S. was not interested. And the reason is also because the lobbying firms for those who promote, who like terrorism or who want to profit from terrorism in Nigeria or West African region are lobbying U.S. government to just be quiet about that. So to say that maybe U.S. doesn't have interest in Nigeria, I don't think is totally correct. I'm just trying to it is like the vulnerable, the ordinary Nigerians are the one who don't really have a U.S. interest. I mean, U.S. doesn't have their interest at us, because you can also see State Department is issuing out something about the resolution in Congress already. And the reason is because U.S. government, it is like, as a diplomat, sir, it is a country-to-country interaction. So U.S. government and Nigeria government are actually talking, they are interacting, they are doing a business together. So what I want to ask of you, sir, is how do we bring the interests of vulnerable Nigeria to bear on the interests of the United States from maybe a security point of view, economic point of view? Because I think U.S. has interest. They went to Sudan and they were able to resolve it. But it's just like maybe the U.S. interest now is that interest of those who are oppressing Nigeria.
Well, Stephen, thank you for the question. I think that the answer is everybody who's on this call, is that the only way you're going to get attention to ordinary Nigerians is to have Nigerians here in the United States start making noise about it. I mean, I was at a breakfast this morning where people were talking at great length about the impact of the war in Ukraine on ordinary Ukrainians. You know, and the Ukrainian American community has a huge lobby. You know, they talk to their Congress people, they talk to their local legislators, they talk to people all the time. And so if you want to get that level of attention and that level of detail, then they've got to hear it from local Nigerians. Let's say the Nigerian community and I'll pick a place, Austin, Texas. You know, I'm just making that up. You know, but whoever is the congressperson from Austin needs to hear from Nigerians in the neighborhood. Here's what we need you to do. You know, that's the reality of it in a real democracy. You know, people need to know what they want done. There are other countries who do a really good job of explaining what they want done.
Sorry, my mute button was stuck. Thank you for that. Pastor Sonny, do you have any questions before we open it up to the audience?
No, I think you can just go on, open it to the audience. Let's take their questions. Good afternoon or good morning, Mr. Professor Destro and Kyle. I welcome you all. I would pass for now. Let's take the audience question.
Okay. So we have Bola Adetula. Go ahead and ask your question.
Good morning from this part of the world that I'm calling from. And thank you very much. I listened carefully. I have two questions. Please, for once, let us put international diplomacy by this wayside and let us face reality. How can the international community, regional organizations, the UN in particular, hold the governments of African countries who allow their countries to sink below acceptable level after they must have alerted them? Because I know all these organizations have their various early warning systems. But at the end of the day, it's the citizens, innocent ones, that suffer. That is number one. The number two, when you notice that terrorists and insurgents are very active in particular areas of certain countries, DRC is there, now Nigeria. A video has been going viral that in Borno State, what is making the Boko Haram to be very active there is because of Californium. Now, what can you do to help us so that at the end of the day, the citizens will benefit from all this rather than the terrorists? That is a very great concern. I'm not going to talk about drug at all. That is another separate thing, because a lot of us in Nigeria are suffering and we are not smiling this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll take like 3 questions together, and so that you can group them because of time. I know Kyle has to leave. So we have Noyo. Noyo, please go ahead. Noyo, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute myself. Good morning. I've also taken time to listen to the presentation, the answers from the 2 gentlemen that we invited. But you know, as a Nigeria, and this is what we feel, all of us Nigerians, that there's a kind of international conspiracy against our country, against our continent. Because if we have candidates running for the presidency of our country, Nigeria, and of those candidates, the international community already knows their records. Some have committed crimes across continents. And what I'm hearing today is that, unfortunately, that the president is going to come out either from the PDP or the APC. So there's almost no opportunity for us to have a new leader, from what I'm hearing today. But the interest of the international community seems to be just to get our resources, with which God has blessed us. They don't care about the poverty in the land. They don't care about the citizens of Nigeria or Africa. And this is unfair. Don't men fear God? I'll ask that question. Don't you have righteous men from all nations of this world that will fear God and will ensure that the right thing will be done in Nigeria for the citizens of Nigeria and the continent of Africa? Let us enjoy some of the things that God has blessed us with as a people. It's not enough that the international community can't stay, taking our resources and making the people to suffer. I heard someone say, I think the first Mr. I have the name here. I heard you when you said that it doesn't seem as if America is interested in that America is not getting the attention of Nigeria. That is not the focus. The focus right now is in Ukraine, where they have the civil war. But we have situations that are just like that. What is happening in Ukraine? Why would America have the largest embassy in Nigeria? America does business with Nigeria, not just America, the rest of the international community. And yet they are not showing the same kind of concern or interest in the citizens of Nigeria. Yes, you said it right, that God has blessed us. We have many things. We have very intelligent people, hardworking people.
No, can you round up, please?
I'm going to round up tomorrow, but I just think I just have to express myself here from what I'm hearing. I'm sorry if I'm taking some time. I'm almost done. So what I'm asking is that in what way are you going to help us beyond what we are seeing right now? Yes, we need to do it ourselves. But if the international community has such a power over whatever the influence over what happens in Africa, how much can we really do as a people?
Thank you.
We just need that grip to be taken out and do efforts. That's what we are asking for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the third one would be Mr. Raf. So there will be 3 questions, and then we'll take the next 3 questions. So Mr. Raf, can you go ahead with your question?
Oh, okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I have one question and a comment. In specific times, sir, Ambassador Destro and my good friend Kia, I remember sometime last year we met and we said, what do Nigeria wants American to do? In specific terms, what can you do as lover of democracy and friend of Nigeria? 1, make sure that the election holds. 2, protect INEC sensitive materials. 3, prevent rigging. 3rd, actions on disinformation and misinformation. That's question number 1. Then my comment is on just on the last part of disinformation and misinformation. People don't know why Boko Haram is there. At one time in the past, my chamber represented Yusuf Muhammad. And we know how he grew to become what it was under Sharif and Shetima, and the inattentive actions of government. So we should stop misinformation about the mineral or international conspiracy, please. Thank you very much.
Who wants to take those 3 questions? And then we'll take the next 3. Kyle, Bob?
Bob's a diplomat.
Well, I think let me start with the comment about the international conspiracy. I think it can certainly look that way. But, you know, my late father always used to say, we used to talk about how, as I always say to you, follow the money. Now, the comment that was made about Boko Haram and Californium in Borno State, that was really the first time I've heard about this. You know, it makes perfect sense. And so when you say follow the money, I'm not just talking about following the money that comes from the United States to Nigeria. It's when you ask the question, why is Boko Haram there? The answer is follow the money. I mean, this is not just purely ideological. This is organized crime we're talking about. And so as my late father, the policeman, used to always say, what's mine is mine and what's yours is negotiable. You know, so this is it's a real issue. The only way I think we can effectively work together is for there to be a lot more information sharing, and then somebody has got to do the coordination. It's certainly not for us to say, look, you know, how do we divide up the work and get it done in a way that is effective for the folks who live on the ground. I mean, because it's whether or not you're dealing with the Russians or the Chinese, you know, one thing I'd like to believe is that Americans do business fairly in Nigeria. If they're not doing business fairly, they should be, you know, but we do know that the root problem in much of this is that they don't really, a lot of these people don't care about the people who live there. All they care about is the resources. You know, they care about the money they can make. You know, it's not, we have laws in this country that say you're not allowed to use slave labor, you know, to produce materials. Well, we need to start enforcing those because, you know, your kids and our kids are equally children of God and ought to be treated fairly no matter where they live.
Carl, you wanted to add to that?
I think, you know, it's difficult. I think there was a comment in the chat that, you know, we're not representing the U.S. government, but we as you as well can influence the U.S. government by either working with reports, the State Department, working with different elected officials, as well as the UN and ICC. I mean, the Universal Periodic Review is coming up for Nigeria, and right now there are groups gathering information. As Bob said, this is data that needs to be verified and submitted to them to show proof, not just I heard this, I thought I saw this, but as ICON has learned, we've worked with an app developer of the London International Bar Association in London to take pictures, videos, audio, record data. It gets the metadata of the location, the geolocation, the date. It's evidentiary. The chain of custody is there. It could be used. It could be researched. It could be used as evidence in any prosecution. And I think having things like this being used in Nigeria can help your voice be legitimized. You know, we need to have these things because, you know, otherwise you're just going to be taken advantage of by the Chinese, by the Russians, and hey, maybe by the Americans as well. So I think having a voice and finding where those being a squeaky wheel to specific people like Icon or Bob himself, you know, we need you. We need to have this information, not just I heard this. Here's a picture. I think someone sent it to me from someone. You know, those things they get lost and no one can verify those. So legitimate, verifiable data and being a voice.
Thank you. So we're going to take the next 3 questions, but I'm going to throw my question in there as well. So with all this data and all this information, if the international community doesn't care, then why are we going to bother? I mean, how many cases, human rights violation cases are in the international court that no one has paid attention to over the years? So that's just one on the side. Mr. Afolabi, Uncle Afolabi, go ahead and unmute yourself, ask your question. Then Dove and Obed, those are the next 3 sets of questions. Carl, I know you have 15 more minutes. So go ahead, Uncle Afolabi.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to say I do agree with our guest speakers. You can only help yourself. You know, God only helps those who help themselves. You know, and I think this is a great insight for the Nigerians in the diaspora, Jumoke and co, create a strong lobbying group, create a strong lobbying group, and to Washington and make yourselves heard. And then in that way, we will also be able to back you stronger, those of us who are here in Nigeria. That is where that's my first point. My question is a simple thing. In the 2015 general elections, the Obama administration made it very clear they did not want the continuation of the Jonathan administration here in Nigeria during the presidential elections. Secretary of State John Kerry came to Nigeria a few times, and each time he came, he made sure that he saw our current president. And only on one occasion did he see our former president, Jonathan. And he came even one time and he went straight to Lagos and saw the current APC candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So even though without saying it, the Obama administration had made it very clear. My question is basically this current administration, the Biden administration, is there any hint, because I've not seen any hint, in what direction they're going and in which direction they're going for in the case of who they're preferring, their preferred candidate? And then my second question is, why is it still till now, with all the terrorism that we have in Nigeria, that the Americans are still refusing to sell? They still put an embargo on selling ammunition and weapons to Nigeria. I don't know if you guys can give us an insight into that. Those are my two questions. And thank you very much for appearing.
Thank you. I'm going to take one more question. Dove, can you go ahead with your question? You're muted. And we'll take those three questions. And Carl, maybe we'll have one more set before you leave. Trying to see. I've asked you to unmute. Dove, go ahead and ask your question. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. I thank everyone. I thank the guest speakers. The last speaker just took everything away from me, and I couldn't have said it better with respect to America, making it very clear in no uncertain terms if they want something changing in any particular country. And of course, Jonathan's administration was a clear case of that. So having said that, with respect to crisis in Africa, I happened to serve in the United States Army at a time when ACRI, African Crisis Response Initiative, was instituted. I wanted to find out from the two gentlemen if they are aware of that particular program and if it's still in place. And by the way, if there's any meaningful outcome that has maybe a meaningful impact on a crisis response initiative in Africa from that particular program. That's my question.
Thank you. So one more. Obed, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, the organizers. And I want to say a big thanks to our guests. I think they've said everything right based on international diplomacy. Nigeria is a sovereign state, and we cannot just mortgage the sovereignty to outsiders. So our destiny is in our hands. We, especially those of us in the diaspora, they've given us the insight, they've given us the idea. It's for us to take it from here and probably partner with them to see what we can achieve. So I just want to commend them for us to hear direct from them that what happens in Nigeria, we have to have the control and not to outsource it to outsiders. But what I'd like to ask from them is, how can they assist us in achieving what we need to do to make Nigeria what it should be in the global community? And again, how can they help us in our fight to make Nigeria what it should be in helping us to make sure that the politicians who are responsible for degrading and putting the Nigeria in the bad light are not, we find it very, very difficult to come, especially here in the United States, to take medical services. Whereas we are in a position to build maybe about the best hospital or similar hospitals in Nigeria, and we don't do it, and because they have the money and everything, they can easily come here to have that treatment. How can they help us to make sure that such people are barred from coming to the US with our cooperation? I just end like that. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Kyle, do you want to take those? Do you want to go first?
I can start and Bob can clean me up. I think, it's, you got to realize that the Buhari's been lobbying in the States since 1999. He's been featured around. He's always put his hat in the ring, told people whatever. So it was no surprise in 2015 when the U.S. State Department came and said, "Well, let's give Buhari a chance. Good luck. Step down." I mean, it was laughable. Now you hear about it, but it's sad. I mean, the U.S. has put him in power, so that's why you want to make sure that you ask very clearly what you're asking what the U.S. government to do, because right now, as Bob had mentioned in the beginning, and I concur, is that this State Department, this U.S. administration is not concerned about the good of all Nigerians. They're concerned with the few. They're concerned about keeping the peace in Nigeria, or the relative peace, so the whole region of West Africa is stable. So that's why we're talking. There's going to be trouble with certain asks, but that's why we need your voice, your information, your testimonies, your truth to say that this is what we can do. We can take it to the State Department. You heard this from that, but this is the actual truth. Or here's to fill out the truth, what you think is the truth, because that is not the truth. That's only part of the story. Here's the rest of it. Because without that, this is what we do. We go to USAID, we go to the State Department, the Africa desk, we talk to people in the embassy. These are the things we want to do, but we need your truth. When Bob went as Assistant Secretary of State, he had his schedule from the State Department, from the embassy, but he also had a list of people that he knew had a different story that the State Department did not want him to meet. So he met with people, heard a different narrative, heard a story. Those are the kind of things we need to be doing, and we will do, and we can do, but we need your help with that. And then the whole thing with military weapons and different. I spoke to a congressman one time, was on the Security Committee, and he said, you can't trust, Nigeria is not capable to defend itself. How can it be trusted to defend the region? He just returned from Cameroon. He said this whole thing to build up defenses for the terrorists and such. He said the U.S. troops are ready to train, but they trust the other troops of Cameroon and Chad over Nigerian troops because of their dedication and duty. The fear is that the Nigerian troops will use it against their own civilians, which is proven to be the case. So these are the kind of things that we've got to be careful of and make sure we know what we're asking.
Yeah, I think I would agree that one of the first questions we got asked as a diplomatic delegation to Nigeria is, how come you're holding back the weapons? And the short answer is always, when you show us that you're not going to use them against your own people, then we'll be more forthcoming, and that becomes a very highly symbolic gesture in and of itself. But in asking one of our participants asked in the chat, whether or not Kyle and I are even qualified to be talking about the diplomatic questions. And I think he's right. We're not, because we're not involved in the day-to-day, diplomatic, dance that goes on in, around the world, but my point to all of you is that you don't solve problems at the diplomatic level. What you do is you work at the local level. And so what we need is the Nigerian diaspora to be more involved in politics here, but we also need the American business community to be more involved in Nigeria and helping people to develop those resources in a nice, transparent way. because I'll tell you, the embassy responds very well to American business interests that are raising questions. They have a whole staff that does that. So the more we can encourage orderly development and the security that goes along with it, the better off we're all going to be. But this is I hate to say it this way, but this is grunt work on the ground. It's not in Abuja. It happens in the States.
Thank you. Carl, I know you have to leave. Is Pastor Neda going to step in for you to take your questions?
You can make them. If he's still
I
here.
don't know if I've been successful so far. Pastor Neda, can you step in for Carl? Because I know he has to go catch and we probably have just this is the last set of questions anyway. So I'm going to call on Mr. Bob Ashiru. Oh, maybe I think I just lost him. And then there is Stephen.
It's Bimbo Ashiru.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Bimbo Ashiru. Okay, Mr. Bimbo Ashiru, please go ahead. I've asked you to unmute.
Oh, yeah, yes. Thank you very much. I think most times when we have discussions like this, we get carried away. And I listened to Robert and Carl talking about, someone asked the question, Folabi, that what is the interest of the President of America? Whether it's going to, they have their own choice for the candidates. Well, from my own analysis and from what I've seen, I think a country deserves a leader they chose on their own. So let's get it right. We have about 18 political parties or presidential candidates, or 18 of them. So we Nigerians, we determine who we want. And that's why everybody should have their PVC to go out there and determine. Americans will not come here and do something for us. We should get it right. There's a limit to what they can do. There is this sovereignty. They can't come and impose someone on us. Now, somebody said that President Buhari was the American choice, but I don't even think today they was. Anyway, let's drop that. So, but the point here is this: they've said it all, that we Nigerians should organize ourselves and sort ourselves out. It's a very simple and straightforward thing. Nigerians in diaspora, unfortunately, you cannot vote, but you have families back home that you can talk to. That look, you expect us to be sending money to you guys. You too should decide who your leaders are. I think mine is just a comment and let people understand, because every day we watch the TV and all the aspirants, they go to Sokoto, go to this, and you see millions of people. But people are confused. Are they really going to vote? Maybe millions of those people there, if they convert their standing there, the same set of people are the ones we see every time. But people assume that they have supporters. So I think we Nigerians must be very firm and decide who we want as our president, or else we will continue to have this problem. And I'm happy with it's unfortunate that it's happening. This cash using this design, it's going to help that we must have a cashless economy whereby people will not use money to influence Nigerians to vote for them. Let people vote according to their conscience. And even the president himself has said it, that Nigerians go out there and vote according to your conscience. I think that is what we should look at and see how we have the weapon to drive out and get whoever we want to be the president of the country. I think that's just my own little submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to take Mr. Stephen Ushukeye. And then we'll take Engineer Femi Uluwe. Go ahead, Mr. Ushukeye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I think everyone can hear me, Mr. Ushukeye. Though I've asked some questions, we all hear what all the diplomats that are there are saying. And the last speaker have said everything. Those of us in diaspora, we have a lot to do. And one of them have mentioned it. And, the destiny of Nigeria is in the hand of Nigeria. So if we are looking at all those conspiracy theories that they are interested in our resources, those are just long, bogus theory that has passed. What are those resources here that the US is interested in? So let's take our destiny to. So my question is maybe to any of our gentlemen, is just somebody have asked it. How can they help us in diaspora to really, I remember Nadeco home, Nadeco abroad, how the abroad were working with the Nadeco at home, and they were able to push those tyrants away that time. So how can they help us as they have been doing? So thank you. I don't have much to say.
Thank you, sir. We're going to take, this is the third question in this round, and it's Engineer Femi Uluwe. Please go ahead, sir. And then the last three sets of questions, and then we'll close. So Bob, do you want to take it first? And then Steve, thank you for stepping in for Carl, who had to leave.
Well, I think that there's a good theme here that I think needs to be expressed a bit more clearly than maybe we have before. And that is that whether or not you're talking about diplomacy or doing business or doing politics, it's all about relationships. You know, it's all about human relationships. And so the more you know about the person that you're working with, the better off you're all going to be. And one of the reasons I put such emphasis on the diaspora is that you in the diaspora are our best source of information, except for people on the ground. You know, and you know the culture, you know the language, you know the people, and we don't. And so in that regard, you know, talking about diplomacy and what the interests of the US are, and, you know, all of those questions, they're interesting questions in one respect in the abstract, but they're not the way you get things done. The way you actually get things done is to form relationships as close to the ground as possible, and then see, you know, one project after another how you get things done. I mean, that's really the way that's the way it has to be, and that's how you find out whether something's a conspiracy theory or real. You talk to people, and that's why we need journalists. You know, we need people who can produce information on the ground, and then it's for the policy people to say, okay, what do we do with that information? You know, so it's it's important stuff, and I think sometimes it gets lost in the thunder and lightning of the big politics.
Thank you. Steve, do you have anything to add to that before I take the last set of questions? You're muted. You're muted, Steve.
I think he said no questions, no comments.
Okay. Can you please go ahead and make Pastor Neda co-host? So I'll take the other, the last four sets. Mr. Samuel Dada, and then please go ahead with your questions. If we can keep it very short, we're coming to a close. Mr. Samuel Dada.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, the guest. I think our people back home couldn't understand that there is what we call the strength of a state sovereignty. In politics, there's what we call the inside and outside. The insides, they do have the order, the trust, the loyalty, and the progress. While the outside, they have the conflict, the suspicion, the self-help, and anarchy. Now, you can't bring people from outside to come into your sovereign nation and decide for you. My appeal is to our two guests today, that what can you do in collaboration with the African Leadership Group to help in giving our people back home a political education that will sensitize them to understand their politics inside, within their own internal democracy, that what they ought to do, so that they won't continuously attacking and be, sending false accusations to the international communities. Because if we produce bad leaders, the international community will work with the bad leaders, because we're a sovereign nation.
So I'm just appealing what you guys can do, because there is a popular culture which Obama used to become president. When I say popular culture, you understand the social media, the Twitter, so Nigerians tools are having these tools in their hands, but they are not using it rightly. Maybe you can set up programs with African Leadership Group where people will come on board, to enlighten them politically, because I have been saying this, we need a thorough political education in Africa, in Nigeria. People are using social media wrongfully. In Italy, they use it to send away the status quo for donkey years, where some years back, we have the populists. They call them a movement of 5 stars. Now is a woman, one of the extreme right, is governing in Italy. So that is how it has been worked in those countries. In Nigeria, we need to arrive, but I'm just appealing that you guys should just come on board and help us so that we can have such thorough political education, so that the mindset of our people back home, we understand that they need to work within their own sovereign state before. You see, international communities might have interests one way or the other. That is the politics. So that is the politics. So people just need to understand that they ought to come out. A revolution must take place. People must have a change of mind before attacking international communities. When you produce a president like Buhari, like Tinubu, what do you get out of it? Or Atiku, what do you get out of it? They have to work with them. So we just need to do something. SARS, please work with African Leadership Group. How you guys can come on board with some programs to educate our people back home, how to solve their problem internally before they come outside. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to take Global Rebirth and then Abayomi Lori. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say a very big thank you to the organizers and our speakers right here in the United States. And I heard some of the comments of our people. Really, we have 3 basic issues that we really want us to look into properly. Number one, the international community, and one of the things that I would have want them to help us with, it's not in the way we castigate our people. Even right here also, we have all manner of people, all right? But in trying to produce, kind of training for leadership, all right? Every nation have background to their involvement and establishment. And as we are growing towards democracy, there are lots of democratic culture that is not even embedded in our people. People that are clamoring today that this president is not good, if they have opportunity, they may do worse. So we need real democratic culture training in Nigeria, not just for those in leadership now, but those even in the system, that because if you want to produce another generation, we need to go back to the schools and try to introduce certain things into the curriculum. I have nothing against Buhari. I have nothing against Atiku. I have nothing against any one of them. But listen, the way we recruit our leaders, all right, definitely there is no way they can give us the best. So that is the one area at which the international community can help us through. Then number 2, we as a people, Nigerian, we must own our system. We must own our country. And how do we own that? Now, this religious bigotry, this tribal sentiment is still working in our system. Once somebody is not from our place, we don't see anything good in them. And that thing, we must, thank God, majority of us here are.
Sir, can you round up your question? Can you please, can you finish with your question? Thank you. Thank you.
So how can our leaders, the international community also help us also? Those of us in the NGOs, the faith-based, how can we stop certain things in the system? Let me just stop on this too, because if I continue, I have a lot of things I jot here while they are speaking. Thank you so very much.
So we're just going to take the last 2, and we're going to take Abayomi Ilori and Engineer Femi Olowe. So Abayomi, please go ahead. You're already unmuted.
Good evening, guys. We appreciate this session.
And then we'll take the last one, and then we'll close.
Good evening, guys. We appreciate this session.
Thank you.
My points straight. It's just going to be 3 points, and it's just for our notes. I noticed that the speakers have opened our ears to certain things we know, but these ones I want us to take. What we have to do to get the international support we need. I just want to reiterate them that one, we need to either consciously as a group or as individuals speak to community leaders around us. What are we speaking to them about? We've seen that the international community like United States of America chose Chad and Cameroon to go support their soldiers in fighting regional terrorism over Nigeria that has more populated army, more population, more resources. It means they are comfortable with such countries. What will make them comfortable with us is our community leaders, and as the last speaker has mentioned, other influential leaders, keep speaking to our security forces that the way you present yourself, what you do with the citizens is seen by the international community, and you won't get that support. I am sure that almost every one of us here will remember that there was a time that an American was kidnapped either in Kano or Kaduna, and they were able to bring in their security forces to get that person out. It means they could help us, but they don't have the trust. So for us to build the trust, we need to do these things. Also, we also need to make sure that information we give out, that we share on WhatsApp, that we share on social media, they're accurate and correct. These things that we've learned, we need to share with other people around us. Like he said, the last speaker, we need to share it with community leaders, religious faith leaders, so that when we are doing the right thing, then those people who can help us will have trust to help us. So thank you very much for this platform. We appreciate you.
Thank you. We're going to take the last one, and I believe that was a comment, not really a question. Engineer Femi, please go ahead. That will be the last set of questions, and then we would have you guys close with your comments. So go ahead, Engineer Femi.
Yes, good evening. My name is actually pronounced as, my surname is Olowe, not
Olowe. Sorry.
Yes,
I am half and half, so forgive me.
It's okay. It's okay. Okay, so I have two questions. The first is this: Bible says that righteousness, how did it say it? Righteousness exalts a nation. Sin is a reproach to every people. And there's also a literature saying that he who comes to justice, he who comes to equity or justice must come with clean hand. US needs to do the talk, walk the talk. I remember we talked about Jonathan government and the ushering in of Buhari government in 2015. It's very clear. The same thing, it's very clear, the direction of US. And I can tell you, whether I'm wrong or right, the reason why Jonathan was not the interest of America was because he had an open rejection of what we call homosexuality, so gay marriage. And the same thing played out in Ghana. So whether I'm wrong or right, this is for debate. The same thing happened in Ghana, that Akufo-Addo had already secured loan with the US for crude oil exploration. And along the line, it was messed up. They had a lag, they had a delay. They were supposed to be paying back, but they have not even explored. And then they messed up the whole economy simply because of that. Now, and you also agree with me that there have been some times that US went into a country, maybe to do one thing or the other, and in the end, you find out that, yes, you were actually wrong. So in the case of Nigeria, bringing in a blessed Buhari is really wrong, and we are bearing the crunch today. So I want to ask, how do you bring to book your past leaders who in one way or the other misled or did something wrong in the office that is affecting other people, like we see in the case of Nigeria and Ghana today? That is one. Number two is this. One of our speakers said that we need to share information, videos, audio recordings and co of evils that are going on in our country. I want to ask them to please release correspondence, perhaps email or phone number, WhatsApp number, or any avenue by which we can drop some evidences that we may have on this platform. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you.
All right, I think let me just try to speak to the last question on the issue of information gathering. Bob Destro, you are busy, I know. Thank you for your patience and sharing with us your experience. I appreciate you from time to time. And on a short notice, Jumoke was able to get you to participate. I just want to note that. Now, on the issue of information gathering, Kyle, my colleague, was trying to talk about International Bar Association of the United Kingdom actually gave us permission to use what they call Eyewitness app. The Eyewitness app is actually something you can, you have to be trained to be able to use it to upload pictures and every other information from incident spot as they happen. But let me just, I'm not going to speak to every question, but this is just my take. I think those who have actually lobbied very well in the United States and even in the UK are the Sudanese, South Sudan and Ethiopia. So it's like we Nigerians who are based here in the United States or who are based in the UK or in the EU countries, we've not really perfected our act of one, messaging. Our message is scattered all over, and then everybody speaks in different tones and languages. Now you are talking to international community, it's not about lecturing, it's just about making sure you have specific ask. And when Bob Destro was in the State Department, we were able to go there and say, and when Pompeo, your boss, was the secretary, we were able to ask, designate Nigeria and, as a country of particular concern. And the second ask is send a special envoy to Nigeria and the Lake Chad region. That is messaging. Articulation is very important, and that is a language of thought when it comes to international community. I think we Nigeria should know that. Yes, the issue of climate change is what State Department is pursuing, but look at how powerful Nigeria community can be. Let me just start an example. I and Carl that just left were with staff of Senator Van Hollen and Senator Cardin of Maryland. And then we were able to raise the issue of Afolabi that was killed in Ogbomosho with them. And they say, wow. And you know what? The last election, Nigerians, Americans of Nigeria descent who voted for these two senators voted in excess of 35,000. 35,000. So meaning this Nigeria alone in Maryland can make these two senators to begin to be, what do I call the speaker on behalf of Nigeria issue. We have not learned that Ethiopia, Sudan, even Cameroon is doing better than us here. I think that is going to be important. And Professor Bob Destro in several meetings have actually volunteered himself to do some training in communication and even to train young lawyers on how to, because this is the issue. Atrocity is taking place in Nigeria. Even electoral violence will come, but how do we train our lawyers to be able to actually approach different courts in different jurisdictions that will bring about this issue to the global community? Very, very important. So we have to take personal ownership. We have to have one common voice. This is our problem in Nigeria. And then the last thing that we can do is also to approach UN Human Rights Council. And this has been what many people have been telling us here, to start what we call International Commission of Inquiry on Nigeria. That happened in Sudan. It happened in different countries, and it will bring different governments around the world together and say Nigeria has problem, and then let us try to see how we can, and it can lead to many things. Can they stay together? Can referendum be done? Because they cannot really invade Nigeria. Yes, there are interests, brothers and sisters, as we gather here. I know, we know how many years it took for us even to get Boko Haram designated. It's not that easy. We are working with petrodollar lobbyists. Saudi Arabia, Iran, Qatar are almost in Washington, D.C., going from one door to the other to begin to lobby for causes. So we, whether we like it or not, one, let me conclude, let's have one single voice. And when we are talking either in little forum, big one, let's just have one common voice. Let us speak one language. If we don't speak those languages and we go with different needs and ask, it will be lost. Nobody even has patience to listen to somebody for 2-3 hours. Thank you.
Thank you. So Bob, do you want to, and if I could just also ask you to, in your closing remark, to speak about the consequences of, God forbid, a failed state in Nigeria, a Nigerian failed state, the global consequences of 220 million people in sub-Saharan Africa in crisis. The global consequences. If you can add that to your closing remark. Thank you.
Sure. I think that the important thing to take away from a conversation like this is that this is a conversation among friends. I mean, we're here in the United States, and we are interested in Nigeria. We're interested in helping you, but we're not at all interested in running your country or interfering. But what we can do on this end is teach you what we've learned about how to do business here, and that's why the diaspora is so important. The consequences of a failed state in Nigeria is it's horrible. I mean, it's what we have is we have a situation where, I don't even necessarily want to go there and talk about whether or not there is or whether there isn't, but what I think is important is to look at the positive side of this. I mean, you are, I keep coming back to saying this, and I sound a little bit like a broken record, but our job is to get behind you and push. As one of my Iranian friends said a long time ago, he says, well, you Muslims and you Christians and we Muslims believe that there's a personal and a final judgment. And that, when God asks us, well, I gave you all these gifts, what did you do with them? That's the question we all have to ask and answer for ourselves. What gifts did God give us individually so that we can use them together for the benefit of the people of Nigeria? If there's a failed state, it means we have failed together. I really do not, I do not believe for 1 minute that there aren't a lot of problems. There are a lot of problems, but there's no, I just saw in the chat, somebody saying about connecting the dots. Yeah, that's exactly what we need to do. And we can't do it without talking together. So, just please understand that people like Kyle and me and Stephen and the organizers of the call, I mean, we're all your friends. We want to help, and most of the conversations about who to trust and who not to trust, that's almost too much information for us. That's like getting involved in my wife's family. I don't need to be there. So this is the we have the tools and the technology. Let's use them together and let us share the knowledge you have. And if you don't think it's relevant, that's fine. Then let it go. But we're here to help, and we want to help. And we think your country, I want to be able to go back to Nigeria and travel around and not get kidnapped. I mean, this is this is what we all want. We want, God gave us children and grandchildren, and God help us if we don't do the right thing to help them lead a good future.
Thank you so much. And thank you for doing this on such short notice. I know I kind of twisted your arm there, but I'm glad you were able to do this. Really, really do appreciate you. I appreciate all the efforts you've been putting in, trying to get congressional hearings, doing late night meetings and all that just to help Nigeria. We do appreciate you. And I am happy to let you know that the diaspora Nigerians are coming together. We're forming a collaborative force to work on initiatives. And one of our initiatives is really ensuring the integrity of this election. So we'll definitely be reaching out to you to speak about some of the action items that we have and how we can actually amplify the voice that this is an election that is important to Nigeria, and we want the international community to stand with us to make sure this is a free and fair election. We're not asking for them to interfere in the electoral process, but we want them to also hold bad actors accountable by closing their borders to those that continue to oppress Nigerians, those that continue to take advantage of Nigerians, and those that continue to trample democracy. This is, it's done for other regions, and we are expecting the same to be done for Nigeria. So that we'll definitely be reaching out to you to work with you on this. So thank you so very much. And I know Carl is probably on his way to the airport. Pastor Eneda, you would communicate our appreciations to Carl. Thank you. I'm going to hand over back to Pastor. Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Bob. Professor, thank you for being part of this conversation. Okay, thank you for putting it together and making it possible. I think it's been very, very instructive, very, very lively. Stephen, it's great to see you. Thank you for all that you do and all that you've done for Nigeria. We're extremely proud of you, and we're hoping that the outcomes will be favorable. Please say us very well to Carl, and we pray that everything will go well, especially from a security point of view in our great nation, Nigeria. I want to thank everybody for participating, for the great questions and the comments. And I'm quite optimistic that God will do a new thing in our country. Once again, Prof. Destro, thank you so much. God bless you all. Have a pleasant evening and a wonderful weekend ahead. Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Thank you. Please remember Nigeria in your prayers, especially during this crisis. Thank you.